Dina, welcome to my channel.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for you know thanks for coming here. And I know Dina from my past life from StubHub. He was my manager. I have a lot of respect for him. He has several years of experience. He uh, he was my senior manager for the database team. And some of the things that I really like about him are like his communication skills. Actually, that's what comes to my mind. Your ability to pick up things quickly. So, and then now we'll talk about your recent career transition. So now you are actually working on a lot of like cool Kubernetes stuff. I'll ask a couple of questions there. So we'll talk about your entrepreneurship experience as well, and then and see what wisdom you can offer there.
I get
Uh,
it.
okay, so that's about that. But I will let you start with like a brief intro.
Okay, first of all, thanks for having me. And so you pretty much put it together. So I worked for larger organizations running database teams and infrastructure, right? So that's what we used to do. StubHub was a big, change in my career because it was a startup. I wanted to enjoy a startup and then join. But then you know that I came from eBay, and within a couple of months of me joining StubHub, eBay, bought us. And my boss then used to joke that, Dina, we liked you so much, we bought StubHub for you. So yeah, so yeah, and since then I transitioned into entrepreneurial role. I have my own startup. The It is a mobile, expense management product. So it's called Payent. So it is still very much alive. The growth is not as much as I wanted, and I can't call it as a pause because I have a road plan for it, and that is being worked in a parallel stream. But then that is kind of I should say a long-term plan at this point. I'm trying to build fund. I'm bootstrapping it basically. So I'm working on the funds now. So that's where I stand with that. And as I kind of transitioned into the cloud world from a DBA world because I realized the greener pasture there doesn't exist anymore, no more, right? So I wanted to see what this cloud world is about, and I started kind of dabbling in it a few years ago, and I'm fully into that right now. So that's where I am.
So I'll start with the communication skills. Actually, I think, and then that's something that everyone could benefit from. And how did you improve your communication skills? Actually, you like, is it like were you a good speaker from college days, or like, has it like improved after like moving to relocating to the US, or how do you see it actually? Like, tell me about your experience.
So I was an introvert to begin with. I mean, right? Introvert in the sense like I had the fear of public speaking. I cannot go up in front of people and talk. But otherwise, I mean, I had a bunch of friends, with whom I would just goof around and like all that. I'm fine with that. But then I cannot go up, in front of people I don't know and speak out my mind. Uh, I realized that very much first time when I was doing computers at a institute. So my graduation was not undergrad, was not in computers. So I wanted to do computers. At that point in this particular institute, you had to go present in front of a bunch of people. So then I mustered up and I just went and started speaking. That's where any kind of public speaking at all started, and be able to speak your mind, be able to ask questions, be able to receive comments. It kind of only started right there. That was the first place, right? So after that, it kind of naturally evolved after I moved to the United States, because as a part of your job, you had to go talk to people. There was a lot of interaction. In fact, I forgot to mention about my job at Sterling Holiday Resorts is a place where I worked. you had to interact with a lot of customers. Now you're disconnected with your customers. You don't know how they use your product, right? Because you produce something, someone is sitting in some customer service center or some place, that you don't know. But then back then, I had my customers in the same building. I would walk up to them and talk to them. So that is where it became more interactive. I learned to listen, learn to take comments, be able to communicate with them. All that kind of helped from that place. And then naturally, when I moved to the United States, it only grew more and more. And the fear of talking to unknown people, be able to voice out my thoughts, all that came up. And then uh, I'm not a I'm not good at reading books or trying to remember things. That is something that never happened, right? I'm still trying to do that. I definitely want to do that because I see my kids do that, and then you know the amount of knowledge they process, the things that they get to know, right? I still feel like I'm lacking there. So I still want to read those like books, more and more books, to be able to understand, get to gain wider knowledge. But most of what I have is from interacting with people, being mentored by others, that told me what to listen for, how to communicate, and all that. That mostly came from my interaction with others and people that mentored me.
So you went from actually being a DBA at I think in eBay you were like a production support DBA, right? And then so before that you had database administration experience, and then from eBay to StubHub, then you became a manager. And how was that transition like? And what did you have to learn, like for that role actually, for being a manager? I know like you never like took your hands off technical stuff, but then,
That was the first thing to learn, to take your hands off it's like driving, a vehicle, right? And then you are with a team of people, and then now you're in the back seat. You're looking at someone else driving them, right? To be not able to commit how to drive, to look out for things, because you need to have faith in whoever the other driver is. That's the sort of role I felt like. All I had to do was set a direction, and then make sure I confided in the person to make sure they would take the particular direction at a particular speed. If they were over speeding or something, right, just be watchful. That kind of analogy is what I can think about, to be able to let go, because you are doing things, you can how to do things and things like that. But then when you have a team of highly competent people, to be able to trust them with something and then take a back seat, and then watch them do it was the first step, I would say, in taking into a managerial role. Yeah. So but otherwise, my um, I can't keep myself away from technology. I want to do things. Even though I would manage teams, I would go and work on things on what a tech, getting my hands dirty. That never went away from me. But then I had to trust in people, let them do things, and just be able to only set directions. That's what I learned. That's what my shift was from being a techie into a managerial role.
That's a great point actually, because I am trying to like hire some freelancers to do some of my YouTube stuff, and like I always like catch myself like trying to learn things and then doing it all by myself. I do like learning things, different things actually. So it's like I can totally resonate with that point actually. Like now I'm realizing I have only so much time. I cannot do everything actually. So I need to
That's
be
very
able
important.
to use the other resources.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, that is a very important point too, about managing them, right? You can't be, trying to do everything by yourself. I mean, even though you are interested, you need to understand your core skill area and then stay there. And others, just entrusted to the, people who you are hiring, right? So you have great platforms like Fiverr, where you can get good reviews and then hire people if you're looking for freelancers. That's a good place. I mean, since you were saying you're trying to get freelancers,
Yeah.
be able to trust that and do it, versus trying to learn and do something. It may be fun for you, but is it worth your time? Is it your core skill area? That's something
It
that you
takes
want to.
time also, because right off the bat, like you cannot produce like really high quality work. So it takes time to learn like a software, whatever it is, like Adobe Premiere Pro or Illustrator, whatever it is, right? Any technical skill also. But then you could hire somebody who's been doing it for years and they will do a pretty good job actually. But yeah, I get that actually when you mentioned about trusting other people and letting them finish or take some of your work. So moving on to the next kind of phase in your career. So you were a manager, and then uh, after a long time you got your green card. So and then that actually helped you to kind of like jump into entrepreneurship. uh, so what was the best part about being an entrepreneur, and what's the worst part about being an entrepreneur actually?
So the best part is, the thought that you're trying to solve a problem, um, be able to create something on your own. When I say on my own, it's not me. I mean, my team is doing. I hired a team. I worked with them, and then I did that. Uh, so the very thought that you're creating a product, so that is going to solve someone's problem, that is the best I would say. I'm right, every day going in and seeing, that it's like your own child, so that you own it now. It's you're not working for anyone. It is your own. Anything that you do is the outcome of that one. So that was what I enjoyed most. And honestly, there, I had to change a few things. So I'm the guy who goes and fills gas up fully when it is right about 75% used. I'm right. I wanted to see what it'd be to run it dry. I did it a couple of times. Incidentally, I moved to India during that time to do things. So I would run my bike dry. I really did it. So I wanted to understand, what it would mean to take, it to the end and see, what is your runway to be able to use it fully and see it. Because what is the worst thing I had to do? I had to, push my vehicle, to the nearest gas station.
Is that a metaphor for something, or like does it mean something in the
Yeah,
practical sense
see,
actually?
in a startup world, really, you need to have something called a runway. You don't work on a product forever. You have a plan, you execute it, you try to get it out in 2 years, 3 years, and then when the runway is done, even though you would have enough, where it is going, and then you need to accept that there is, this is not working, and be able to let go. So a lot of people that do business don't understand that fact and then do it. So for me, it was trying to understand how far I can go before I can, get let go of things. And the other part to it is being risk averse, right? If you don't know, if you can take a risk and be able to face the consequences of it. Because anyone doing a startup, they don't have boatloads of money to spend on it. They have only so much budget. They know how much they're going to spend on it before they get funding. So you cannot bootstrap all the way. There are very few companies that have been lucky to do that, but then at some point you need to get funding. So this meant both these things for me. How far can I go? How far should I take it? So both those things that it helped me actually really in that. So that's why I started doing that kind of stuff. So apart from enjoying creating a product, being able to explore, how risk averse I am, those two things, I enjoyed it. And
That's
what
good.
I did not like, um, I don't know. I mean, because I felt like I was very happy doing that stuff, So um, I didn't have my eyes on anything else. So probably my family had to, take the burden of it. I'm right. Me not being present at, places and times, then they would have really wanted me. I won't say I hated things about doing a startup work.
So you were all in, like
Yeah,
when you
I
were
was
at.
all. Yeah.
So now again, like you, for whatever reason, you decided to actually, uh, come back to work for someone else, and you like again, you didn't take the traditional, like, like my skills are basically database, Oracle, MySQL, and whatnot. But then you decided to actually go into NoSQL area, right? You actually you had some experience with Mongo, but you actually kind of gained more knowledge in MongoDB, and then and that's how you got your job after a couple of years of your entrepreneurship experience. Can you talk about that? Like, what was your thought process there, and just before getting the job, and why MongoDB? And I know that you don't do MongoDB now, but we'll get there actually.
So why MongoDB? More than just MongoDB, it was the opportunity to work in a cloud area, because it was not just MongoDB, it was Mongo running in AWS cloud. That's what interested me, and then that's what took me there. So since I had the experience and I was brushing up my skills, and then when this opportunity came up, what more interested me than the Mongo itself is the fact that it's running on cloud, and that's why I took that opportunity. Because as I mentioned earlier, database is no more a greener pasture. So I that's how I see it, and the NoSQL kind of turned around things. I'm right. I mean, still people are using OLTP systems, as a traditional SQL, but then NoSQL kind of made it easy for development folks, and it is being adopted more and more in the market. So I knew NoSQL was the thing to start with, and then I started there. But then the more enticing part was the cloud, and I said, okay, this should be it. Let me give it a shot, and I gave it a shot. So it worked.
Yeah, not every application needs like a huge monolithic Oracle infrastructure actually. Like, a lot of applications could do with NoSQL, horizontal scaling. They could actually live with some compromise on read consistency and things like that, right? Yeah.
We had we did work on, right? You worked on things, breaking down larger things into smaller. Even with Stavovum, right? It was not, it was one large application that was then being broken down, and then we had to go and create smaller schemas even within the database world, right? I mean, Oracle as known.
So can you talk about your preparation process actually, like as in what did you do? Like I know that you did some certifications. Can you talk about like certifications and resources and things like that?
For Mongo, you mean?
For your comeback.
I didn't want to start doing job right away. That was the thing. And COVID happened, and then things were getting too boring. So I was home, for 6 months after coming back, and I didn't do anything. As soon as I moved, I started doing, course online for, cloud engineering. I wanted to do a certification, but then, as usual, I didn't have, enough fire to go and do it, right? So I did it at a very, very slow pace. I took almost 6 months. I was not going anywhere. But then when COVID happened, I was stuck at home and doing nothing. And then I think it kind of accelerated things for me. I mean, COVID came as a blessing in disguise, I should say. And I finished what took me 6 months. I finished it in like a month and a half. I prepared for the course in less than a month and a half. And then I took my, associate, certified associate, certification, right? So in AWS. So I did that. And then right around that time, after I did my certification, is when, people started approaching, I said, fine, let's give this a shot, and Mongo too. I did brush up, because Mongo also has a free course online, which is more not a theory. You need to do things. You need to try out things. That was the best part about it. I enjoyed that actually more than anything, right? Because you get to do things. This is not theory. You're not reading some architecture. You're not looking at a bunch of pictures. You get to do things. Experiment things. So I did that, and right around that time, this opportunity came, and I took it.
So one thing I want to ask about your your own product is, like, being a DBA, we know we have this database expertise, we can pretty much work with any database. It doesn't have to be Oracle. We can pick up things and we can do things. But what about the software side of things or the engineering side of things? How did you actually like put together the solution, the architect, the architecture of the product itself? Actually, how did you go about that?
So I kind of did something different from any startup. Usually startups would hire their own people and start doing things. But what I did is I hired a bunch of freelancers, and I worked with them initially. So to architect the product and work on the engineering side of it, deciding what stack to use, on the front end, right? Back then, I pretty much knew I would go with MySQL. It was the easiest for me to set up and get going. But then the architecture, how to engineer it, I outsourced that particular part while being part of the decision-making process, because it's after all my, product, so I was part of the decision-making one, but then coming up with the ideas, coming up with, the architecture, everything was done by outsourced, team. So that's how I started. When in a startup, we call, minimum viable product, right? You build something minimum viable, and that's where you go from. So once the MVP was done, I started hiring my own team and then insourced that, and then the whole effort, and then started driving it. So that's how it was done.
Just curious, actually, did you use cloud and microservices and that kind of architecture, or like, can you just talk about that, like at a high level, actually, about your product design? Yeah.
So initially, no, we did not use anything like a microservice. Okay. To begin with, this was done in DigitalOcean. DigitalOcean is another, it's a startup by itself. They had cloud offerings. So I built they call it droplets. So what do you call it as a EC2 instance? It's called a droplet in DigitalOcean. So I built a droplet, and then I, configured things there. I was running a, Apache server, running, MySQL, setting up PHP. So we had JavaScript. We had used JavaScript, CSS, HTML, and then we used PHP for the, making the backend calls to the database. So that's kind of the middleware that was running. That's how it was designed, and that was pretty much it. And we wanted to be mobile first, and because of which we started developing it as progressive web app, because we could push at a much faster rate. Because if I found a bug, or if I wanted to do a feature enhancement that customers needed tomorrow, right, I want to be able to move at the pace of the business. So what we did is we started doing it as a progressive web app. So this was all learning for me. Because I'm interacting with really, really intelligent people at work, and also my peers in the industry. In Chennai, we have a very good SaaS environment. A lot of people that I met there, during my days, understanding about startup, learning about startup. So they helped me, with this process, and then we started adopting the progressive web app.
You were part of some Y Combinator kind of organization, right? Like, what is it?
It's called Founders Institute.
Founders Institute, actually. And
that was the best decision, the easiest decision, I should say, because I didn't go to a business school. I'm not from an entrepreneurial background. My dad, granddad, everyone worked somewhere. They were not entrepreneurs. So it's not easy for me to understand, what to do, what not to do, how to do things, So Founders Institute helped me a lot, So it made me go through the entire process of, what product to create, why create it, because they give you all kinds of, sound ideas, right? That makes you understand things to do, things not to do, being able to understand your customer, being able to understand your product, that all came from Founders Institute. So, that is one of the best and easiest decisions to take, and I did, and I love the fact that I was, and I'm continuing to be part of FI.
So you actually went into basically a cloud engineer role, and initially you were working on Mongo stuff, and then, but then you moved on to Kubernetes uh, admin. Actually, you're a Kubernetes admin now. What are you doing now? Can you talk about your Kubernetes experience, kind of thing?
So my role is kind of complex, I should say, because I started off working on Mongo. Uh, my role was to create resilience for the Mongo to be deployed in a hybrid model. Right, some nodes still being in the data center, some in the cloud. So that was where I started, but then I transitioned into the role I'm currently in. I'm not able to give a name to the role, because I do a variety of things. I'm still scripting, Python and Bash, to be able to automate a lot of things that our customers use, to be able to launch a cluster, Kubernetes cluster and things around it, right? So I still do that. And then I'm doing troubleshooting of any issues that come, which is the bread and butter. That's what we have been doing, and I continue to do that, but in a different area, infrastructure. I should say my role is more like an infra ops role. I think it would suit, than saying like, because I'm working on Kubernetes, I'm working on doing the shell script development. I'm looking at AWS to see, if there is any issue with security groups, if there is any issue with the performance of the EC2 instance that we are picking, any networking, VPC, VPC endpoints, load
Um,
balancers. There are a lot of things, it's just across what do you say, the range, so it's not one thing that I'm working on. So, and we get to work on exciting things, different things every day. It's my job is keeping me very engaged, because it is not the same monotonous thing every day. There's something or the other that's different about either the very next day. I work on Jenkins, I work on CI/CD pipelines. There's a variety of things that we are doing. So it is fun every day. So that's the kind of role I'm doing. I'm not able to give it a name. The
yeah.
best I could think of is infra ops. That's all I can say.
And any last piece of advice for the database admins?
I mean, I wouldn't say don't be a DBA, but then try to transition, widen your knowledge about the cloud. The cloud is still, I mean, I'm surprised that the penetration is not that great yet for the cloud. I mean, a lot of companies are still, in data centers, but then it's going to drastically change. I mean, pick up some cloud skill. It need not be necessarily AWS. It could be Azure. It could be GCP. I mean, there are other bunch of cloud companies too. I mean, DigitalOcean is one of them, right? Everyone is coming up with their own product now. So try to understand, how to run databases in cloud world and be able to, ready for that change. I'm right. Prepare yourself to embrace. So
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. Great. Thanks for that, Dina. I think
Okay.
thank you so much for your time, actually.